Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Monday so far. Today is May 5th, 2025, and we have severe weather to talk about and also a pattern change that will affect quite a bit of the country. First, looking at our convective outlooks for Monday, and so we do have an enhanced risk out here into Texas and New Mexico. Around that is a slight risk in the yellow color, and then into the lighter green is a marginal risk, and the dark green is a general thunderstorm risk. Out to the east into the Florida Peninsula, we also have a marginal risk there. And then into portions of the northeast and mid-Atlantic, we also have a marginal risk there. Wind and hail will be possible with all three of these risks, with the tornado risk being isolated only into New Mexico and Texas, as well as the Florida Peninsula, with a 5% risk into Texas and a 2% into New Mexico and the Florida Peninsula, with also a 30% hail risk into Texas and New Mexico, with a hatch risk around that for Monday. For Tuesday, we have a slight risk into Texas and Louisiana, and also a marginal risk in the light green color into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. On the 0Z8RRR, storms look like they will start to form as early as Monday morning across New Mexico and Texas, and then continuing throughout the day into the morning hours and later into the afternoon. You could see some more storm coverage up here into the panhandle of Texas as well as central Texas as you get into Monday afternoon. Then getting further into the afternoon and evening, you could see some more development up here into New Mexico and into the panhandle of Texas, with even more development possible out here into central Texas. Continuing on even further, as you get into Monday night and Tuesday, you could see another pretty strong line of storms start to move through once again the panhandle of Texas and then through parts of southeastern New Mexico, and that could potentially continue on into Thursday and deliver that slight risk of severe weather is for Tuesday, but that risk for damaging winds and hail will be possible once again there for Tuesday as those storms move eastward. Looking at the mid-Atlantic, storms could start to form as early as Monday morning, and so you could see quite a few storms in some clusters out here into the mid-Atlantic, but mostly this will be associated with this upper level low just lingering around here and kind of rotating in these areas, and so you'll have pretty widespread coverage, especially up here into Pennsylvania and even New York State, but still storms all the way throughout the mid-Atlantic and especially parts of the Northeast, even into the Ohio Valley on Monday, and most of those will continue all the way into the nighttime hours, but still even by Tuesday morning, you could see some leftover rain showers from the system. In Florida, the storms will start to develop by the afternoon hours, and then as you get into the evening hours, coverage could increase a little bit more into the eastern Florida peninsula, with most of those storms staying right along the coastline of the eastern Florida peninsula, and most of those storms will start to weaken by the late evening hours and even into the nighttime hours. But even as you get into Tuesday morning, most of those storms should be well out of those areas. Now switching more to the long range, really the medium to long range discussion here. And so first looking at the GFS weather model, and as you can see here is our upper level low up into the Ohio Valley, and that will once again linger around into these areas with another system further out to the west into the central US, and that will deliver our severe weather threats for Monday and Tuesday, and that will continue on to the east, and you finally start to have your upper level low move out into kind of the Atlantic and up into portions of Canada by midweek, and still looking down here into the southern US by later this week and Thursday into Friday. You could still see some moisture lingering around here into the Gulf, and so you could see day after day with some showers and thunderstorms into these areas, but nothing too crazy. Maybe some isolated severe weather risk into these areas, but once again, nothing too crazy for this time of year. But I would not be surprised if some areas see quite a bit of rain, and so an isolated flash flooding threat cannot be ruled out across these areas, especially if you see day after day of thunderstorms and showers across these areas. Even as you get into next week, the 13th and 14th, the GFS does not show a whole lot. Now looking at the European weather model, same story there with our system midweek moving eastward across the south central U.S. Even our system up here in the northeastern U.S. starts to move out by late week. Once again, moisture about every day, almost into the Gulf. Nothing really looks like it'll stay around for too long, but still, you could see days and days of rain across these areas, especially throughout this week and later this week across the Gulf Coast states. And still, even as you get into this weekend, once again, not a whole lot showing up for both the GFS and European weather models. And now kind of looking at our weather pattern, and that will be with the EPS ensembles. And so the areas of blue are areas of troughing that represent lower pressure, and the areas in red represent ridging, and that's areas of higher pressure. So getting once again later into this week, you could see some troughing here to the southeastern US, and that will once again bring the showers and thunderstorms into the Gulf Coast states. Then even as you get into this weekend and even early next week, troughing kind of stays around here, but ridging dominates most of the United States for the most part. So that'll bring likely above average temperatures into quite a bit of the central US, with some relief of cooler temperatures into portions of the eastern U.S. and southeastern U.S. as we get into later this week and this weekend. Then going further with that, even into next week, not a whole lot shows up here, but you could see some subtle troughing into the western U.S. with some ridging into the eastern U.S., and that could potentially set us up for maybe more of a pattern where we have systems move across the central U.S. maybe towards the middle or second half of May, but still we'll have to continue to watch this and see how this plays out. And now I'll be looking at the GEFS and CFS version 2 supercell composite accumulations. And so first starting out with the GEFS week 1 supercell composite accumulation, looking from May 4th through the 10th of May, you see areas into the south central U.S. with the most concentration of that supercell composite parameter. Then as you get into the 11th through the 17th of May, kind of some areas out there into Arkansas and Oklahoma. But looking a little bit closer at the CFS version 2 at the bottom of your screen, you can see the CFS V2 highlights areas into the Gulf Coast states with the potential for severe weather. And then as you get into the 11th through the 18th of May, an area into the central U.S. But really catches my attention is this area starting the 18th of May through the 25th of May. Although this may not be the most accurate because it is pretty far out, it does highlight quite a few areas out here in the central U.S. So that'll be something to continue to watch over the next couple of weeks. So that'll be it for today's forecast. I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I'll probably have another video out later this week, but I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's Monday.